That is never not creepy. Look at the little picture of him too.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Craig. I'm Craig, the recording bot.
And here's to the beginning.
I'll drink to that.
Why, Johnny Ringo.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
I know exactly what I'm doing, and I can change it at any time.
I'm your huckleberry.
Outlaw loose and running came the whisper from each lip, and he's here to do some business with the big iron on his hip.
Incoming the Ramblin podcast with your hosts, Conway Titty and Stoney Robbins.
Howdy, folks, and welcome back to another episode of the Ramblin podcast. We are at episode number 6.
Number 6.
6. And if you're listening to your car and you probably just heard those numbers in a row, you're probably like, "Oh God, the devil's here." Oh no.
Yeah, I don't think that computes at all.
But what's up, guys? As you can listen and hear, because you can't see this week, this is gonna be an audio only podcast. We didn't feel like being on camera today. Just one of those days. Didn't feel like it. No face cam, you know. Just wanted to use our nice, beautiful speaking voices that you guys love so much, and they totally are so not annoying at all, not even one bit.
Not even a little bit.
We wanted to just do audio this week. Like I said, didn't feel like being on camera. We are actually at each other's desks. So I'm at mine, Stoney's at his, and we're using our nice mics. So the audio is probably a little bit nice and a little bit more crispier than it has been.
And concise.
Crisp and concise. So yeah, it might sound a little better for you. So if you're listening in your car or listening in your earphones and we're just in your ears with your little ear pods in and you can just hear us talking to you, hi and welcome back.
Ew. Wasn't this supposed to be ASMR? Get out of here with that weird shit.
No. Well, last week we talked about how great community guidelines are and how fucking stupid they are. So I hope that you guys related to it and enjoyed that episode because it was fun to talk about. Sony really hated those ads, let me tell you what. And if you didn't listen, you can listen to him rant about some ads.
I fucking despise ads. Ads are the worst part of living in a capitalist society because everything's like, oh, it's curated for you. No, go fuck yourself.
Honestly, just everything. And we talked about rules and the regulations that are stupid and non-existent. So yeah, go check out that episode, but don't do it right now because you're listening to the new episode 6. So today, we sat around for like a couple days and really being like, I don't fucking know what we want to talk about because we have certain topics that we're talking about for like the next coming episodes, which you'll see soon. And we went through our list and it's one, just one of those things like, I don't fucking want to talk about that today, or that sounds lame, or no, not today, so we had to sit through our list and try to figure out what would be fun to talk about for both of us and like what kind of mood we're in. And Sonny, you want to tell them what's the topic today?
We're not in a mood. Well, let's see. We want to talk about the weirdness of something that not all of you are going to relate to, but if you grew up in a small town, you're going to relate to. So spoilers, it's about small towns. We're
small
going
town
to
things.
dive in about the odds, ins, and outs, and weird things that like you really only understand if you're from a small town, I guess, or at the very least you've lived in a small town, interacted with a small town. You just got to know about small towns, okay?
And to give like a definition of a small town, because I'm sure you're sitting there going, my small, there's always that fucking argument where everybody's like, well, I'm from a small town, and everyone's like, oh yeah, so like how many people did you graduate with? And then somebody's like 150, and then somebody else is like, that's not a small town, I graduated with 5 people. You know what I
People
mean?
try to- people try to gatekeep small towns. Like, shut
They
the
try
fuck
to like
up.
out small town your small town. And just to give the audience here a general idea, we are talking about towns that aren't like when people are like, "Oh, I'm from a small town," and you're like, "Oh yeah, how many people does your town have?" And they're like, "Oh, 100,000 people, and we have a Chick-fil-A and a Cheesecake Factory and a Sonic and like 7 different brand new chain restaurants, and the town's like super busy all the fucking time and there's traffic everywhere." You know what I mean? We're not talking about towns like that. We're talking about, as the people who out small town your small town. We're talking about the people that are like, "I only got a stoplight in our town."
Yeah, that might be a small town then. Crazy thought.
We're not talking about the ones that are on, go through main highways and there's giant cities 5 minutes from them. You know what I mean? Like we're talking about like the bodunk fucks that have gravel roads and the environment of like in the ideology of small towns. So I thought this was a great topic for both of us because both you and I are from 2 totally separate other sides of the state small towns.
Yeah,
like
there's stark differences between my small town and your small town,
which is crazy. And I know you guys will a lot of relate to because it's like our small towns are different than like Louisiana small towns or like Texas small towns or like Ohio small towns. You know what I mean? Like small towns are very different around the world depending on what state you live in, and not like a village, not like out of the country, but in the United States it's very different in the small towns, but it's all the same if you know what I mean. Like it's very different on kind of like the environment, whether it's like the weather, things that you do because of the seasons, or just the way you can have hangouts and different things like that. But in the general aspect of everything, it's very similar of the culture of, like I said, everyone trying to out small town a small town, and we don't like the big cities.
It really is, because like you've got certain small towns where you might have, let's call it, I don't know, 30,000 people in your small town. That's still considered a small town, but compared to somebody who's in like a town of like 1,000, very different small towns.
Yes.
Like, they still have a lot of the same quirks, niches, this, that, and the other. Like, you might drag Maine on Friday night because there's literally fuck all to do except like drugs or go get drunk in someone's field. But at the end of the day, you're still doing the same thing that you would do in a bigger town, even though it's still a small town, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but then you're gonna have the people that are going, "I don't know what the fuck you bodunk rednecks are talking about. What the fuck is drag Maine?" Or there's gonna be a lot of things that you guys probably will have no fucking clue. So we'll make sure to like kind of tell you guys, because there's always the city folks that are always so curious about it too.
I'm gonna preface this first off. Cow tipping is not a fucking thing. First off, for you weirdos who truly are like, no,
it's very prominent. No, because they're gonna get all these people saying you're wrong because we do that every other weekend. Trust me, it's a thing. It's a thing. So you can't say, "Oh, it's not a thing," because it's a thing. It's
okay.
A thing.
I'll just say okay, because cows sleep on the ground, but whatever. I don't know anything. It's fine.
Not even that. No, I'm saying it is a thing. People at least try to go do it, or they have a form of doing it.
That's stupid.
Yeah, like I said, small town things. So I grew up in a town. It was fairly small. I graduated with like 150 people, and I know, like I said, there's gonna be people out there that are like, "Well, that's not a small town." Nope, it's a small town. There's bumfuck there to do. When I was there was a Pizza Hut, a Sonic, and a McDonald's. That was at a Walmart. We were lucky enough to have a Walmart, and then I know some of the towns around us didn't have a Walmart. So in the area of small towns. That's and we had like 30 different banks. That also is a very key aspect of a small town, is the banks outweigh the food places.
Well, it's banks and churches, I think, are the two big,
the church
big
on every corner, pretty much. Church on every corner. That's very, very aspect. But for majority of my life, I grew up in the country, like having to drive 30 minutes every day, every morning to school, basically, to get to school. So I grew up in a smaller town outside the smaller town where there literally was nothing, and you had to go to 30-minute drive to the town to be in town. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean that's like how I was. Like I spent probably at least over half of my life in a small town. Because I wasn't necessarily born and raised in a sense in a small town. Like I lived other places.
Yeah.
But you know, for the formative years, and I mean honestly, from like probably 8 on, I lived in small towns.
So yeah, the molding years.
Yeah, yeah.
It really gets you.
Yeah, because like I grew up and like when I first moved to the small town, I lived in the town. Not for very long, maybe like 6 months or whatever, 6 months to a year at max, if I had to guess. But then I grew up like 15 miles outside of like the nearest town.
Yeah.
And like where I lived was in between two small towns. One was a small town, the other was a very small town. One had like, 20, 30,000 people. The other one had like 500. And
Yeah,
so like it was
that's the
either
difference.
go to that town for something smaller, like there was a convenience store there was like a Napa Auto Parts, like very small things that were in that very small town.
Yeah.
Or I could drive 15 minutes to the town where I basically grew up in, where I went to high school and everything like that. But there was literally nothing there. I mean, yeah, we had, the normal restaurants that every small town has. Like you got a pizza chain, you'll have like, a couple, for whatever reason, always, I think it's just a southern thing, but too many Mexican restaurants for the demand.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
Like I think
We
at
had
one
that
point in
too.
time we had like 4 Mexican restaurants in that town, and there was like enough sustain for like one, maybe.
And that was like, the place to eat all of the time because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, it's like that's the same thing where like every small town has like a main street, and like even if it's not like quote unquote named Main Street, everyone knows when you're referring to like Main Street.
Yeah.
And there's usually like a couple buildings that have been there forever. There's been like a business or two in every single building. There's not really any restaurants, and for whatever reason, I don't know why it is, but there's always an insurance place on your main street. Don't know why, but in every small town I've been in, there's always been like a Edward Jones or some weird fucking insurance or investment firm for whatever reason, which is completely out of place, but it happens to be there.
Yeah. So kind of that way we can kind of stay on track of what we're gonna do. We're gonna kind of tell our own little version story, so that we're not going like back and forth with the same topic. So Stoney just decided, he was like, "All right, I'm gonna really tell you guys this." So yeah, he's right, because even thinking about my version of it, it's you still have those same kind of niche things back to back in the same area, whether, like I said, you're up north, you're up south, you're east, or you're west. It's still kind of in that area of like, you got, your pizza chains, your Mexican restaurant, you got like all the banks, all the churches, and yeah, a little insurance place that's just sitting there for what?
50 years or whatever. Like it's the same place that's been there for as long as you've, been in that town, and it makes no sense how it even stays open at this point.
Yes. So I'm gonna tell my little version, and then Stoney can tell his. So and then we can, kind of compare and agree or disagree of like, oh, that's not what I used to do or you used to do, like different things like that. Because like I said, I know a lot of you guys are gonna be like, well, that's not. Like I said, we're not gonna have a whose town is smaller dick measuring contest here, okay?
Like a small dick measuring contest.
A small dick measuring contest, technically. So as I was saying, I grew up 30 minutes outside of like the actual town in the country most of my life. And I went to church almost every Sunday. I lived in like literally the middle of the woods. We went to one of those kind of churches that are just on the corner on a dirt road. It's for the people that live in the woods. Just like that little communal church, because all the other churches are like 45 minutes away. Does that make sense? Like, and very just shitty church. Just when you think of an old country church, picture that in your mind, guys. That was basically it. Hot as fuck. Didn't really pay attention half the time. Didn't want to be there. Was forced to go. All the same just you think of creepy old folks and just weirdos. Sound that right there. But Jesus is the thing for them. And then basically where I lived, my family was there for generations. They still are. I can't count back how far they've been in the same area. So it's just kind of been the same thing for like years. You know what I mean? And I find that truly fascinating that out of so many people in the bloodline, you know, that just kind of like, or the cousins and aunts, you know what I mean? Like all just what you would consider family, right? That all of them have just decided, nope, we'll just, here is fine. And no one ever really decided to like branch out, even after like 100 years. Nope, they're like, nope, sounds good for me.
And that's a very common thing with small towns, I feel like. Like people will go there and then they'll just stay there forever.
Yeah, and all their descendants stay there, and you
get trapped generationally, it seems.
Yeah, you really do. You really, really, really do. And so half of my family I would consider like cowboys, rednecks, country folk, and then the other half are like indigenous. So I know my indigenous side, it was, you know, forced there to live there, and that's kind of where they settled. And you know, I know that because of the area of the state where I'm from, right? I know that part. And then I think about the other half that's like they just camped out and we're like, this is a spot, I guess. We'll just
fine. Everything is fine.
Yeah, and we'll just ranch here and that's it. We'll be little farmers and that's it. So I think about myself in the kind of culture from, let's say like before, like right before middle school started, right? I kind of think of the small town culture because, you know, things have changed since even just the early 2000s. You know what I mean? And
yeah, definitely.
I think the biggest thing is obviously with most small towns, what's the biggest sport?
Football.
Exactly, football. So I remember always going almost literally every Friday night if we didn't have anything to do, going to the football games and like running around under the bleachers with like all the other kids that I knew because I grew up with them and their families grew up with my families and they've all been there for the same, you know, you still have those people that even other people's generations are still there. And I remember just running around with them. And I remember you would have like the early 2000s was a very interesting culture and aesthetic in small towns because you kind of had the internet, but you didn't. But you still were allowed to do like all of the really fun things, like all the big bonfires and like school spirit days and like all of this crazy shit that you don't get to do anymore, like at all. This is like coming from like my view of like what I thought the atmosphere of a small town high school life was back then versus like what my high school life actually was, you know? Yeah. And I like all the kids all were at the football games. Like there was always this big like spirit for it and people really enjoyed, like that was where the kids were on Friday nights. You know what I mean? Like they were there.
Like I remember doing the like, you know, similar thing, but like we would just get dropped off.
Yeah, you would just see the older kids that, you know, they were like high schoolers and you're like, you know, like 7 or something. And you're just being like, wow, I can't wait to get to high school. That sounds so much fun. Like, it looks cool. They get to do all these fun things. You know, like truly, like, well, for me, it's like, I feel like I would have had a better high school experience if I went to high school during that time, only because ours was so shitty by the time I got to high school because all the rules were in place. There were so many things that we weren't allowed to do that was like a kind of, you know, a tradition for, you know, most of other things. Does that make sense? Yeah. So like my high school experience was really not fun at all because they implemented so many rules by the time I got there that it's like, well, that's fucking lame and that just takes the fun out of everything. And then you have, you know, technology advancing and social media stuff advancing. So people aren't really like wanting to go do things together because they have phones to text each other 24/7 and to FaceTime. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I have like a shitty fondness because it's not like, oh my God, I'm in love with that aspect, but I do have a fondness of like, I think that's really cool that you have all these people in the same spot all watching the same thing and not distracted by their fucking cellular device. It's not like that anymore. I sound like an old timer. But that's what my envision of it was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, I remember during, like, since it's fall now, during hunting season too, there was a gas station that was like 10 minutes from our house. That was like the middle of nowhere gas station for like farm trucks and different things like that, little store. And they had a little breakfast place. And my family and I, or my dad and I, would eat there before we'd go hunting. And that was like something I remember doing, was like you would see all the like dads and their kids eat there, and then everyone would go hunt, and then you come back for like lunch or whatever, right? I remember like going to deer camps, which were me in the middle of the fucking woods, sleeping in some tent thing, early in the mornings, ready to get up to go hunt. You know, like it's, you have that aspect. You had to have, like, you'd go to school and you'd have kids be wearing camo and things like that, and they would have like literally a fresh killed deer in their truck.
Or even back then, like, I mean, we used to have rifles and shit in our trucks.
Yeah.
We went
Because of
hunting the
everything.
morning of.
Yeah. But by the time I got to high school, all those laws are in effect, obviously, for very good reasons. But you would still, like, I would see the principal come to school in camo. You'd see everybody else still have their face paint on from duck hunting. So, like, there's still that, like, for me, with that small town culture where, like, almost everyone drove trucks, or they literally rode a tractor to school for fun. Or, like I said, they just got done killing ducks, and there's a bunch of ducks in their truck, and they're covered in fucking smell and eye makeup and shit, and like they were wearing full camo, and like that's some things that like most people aren't gonna get in a bigger town. You're not gonna really witness like that of like, oh no, that's like a casual day at school. That's not like a dress up day. That's not like a spirit day. Like that's just
That's just how everyone went to school.
People just got done hunting at, they woke up at like 4 a.m. to go hunt before school, and then still made it to school on time.
Yeah.
So it'd be like that aspect and kind of the small townness of that. And it was always a really big deal when you would get your driver's license too, because it wasn't like oh my God, I could drive myself to school, or like an, oh my God, like now I can drive wherever. It was like oh my God, I could back road now. Me and my friends could go. And it wasn't even about, drinking. I was never that type that was like, I want to go drink and drive around a back road. That sounds so fucking stupid to me. I was always like, let's blare the music as loud as I fucking can, roll the windows down during like fall, and you're driving down the back road with your friends just singing, and the breeze is nice, and you're like late at night, you guys got to be home in like 30 minutes, but you're just enjoying the darkness and
I mean, like,
driving around the country.
It was just like an escape because there was literally nothing to do. So
and that was the thing to do,
Yeah.
Was the backroadings. And backroadings, for anybody who doesn't know, it's just literally getting in a vehicle and driving down gravel roads and the back country roads. You don't hit a main highway. You don't see light for like miles. You probably don't see a house for miles. You're just stars,
there are county roads
music.
that are, either half paved, they're gravel, or even, where I'm from, most of them are just straight dirt.
Yeah, just dirt. Yeah. So you have like that aspect of like, that was like a way to entertain yourself, was whenever whoever in your friend group got their license first, or you'd have like, for me, I was always hanging around with the older kids. So I was, as soon as I got in high school, I was already doing shit I probably should have not been doing.
Well, yeah, sports. I feel like sports contributed a lot to that because like you grew up playing sports, I grew up playing sports, and like I ended up hanging out with people that were a lot high. Like I was hanging out with, seniors and stuff when I was a freshman.
Oh no, that's not who I'm talking about. I didn't hang out with anybody that was older than me that was in sports, because all of them were very goody two shoes. You got to remember that. Like I was a secretly really crappy kid compared to what everyone thought I was. I was hanging out with, me and my friends were hanging out with like older boys and people we probably shouldn't have been hanging around with. So it wasn't like really any like sports related. That got more like once we got older into high school, we would hang out with like our actual people that we were like had in our class. But for the first start of my high school career, I was hanging around people that were like going off to college.
Yeah, I forget. That's the difference between, guys, girls kind of situation, especially in high school.
Yeah, especially. So we would be in like we all would meet up at the civic center in our town. Like just everyone would be up in their souped up trucks with all their lights, their Casey lights
Yeah, it's like
and their light bars. And
souped
their
up is
giant-
kind of a suggestive term because
no,
usually it was a clapped out truck.
Nope. I'm talking about a souped up truck. Because remember, some people are really poor in the town and some people aren't. So you have 16 to 18-year-olds driving around, trucks that are like $80,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah, brand new trucks,
So-
and then you got the rest of us
Yeah.
driving clapped out pieces of shit.
So it was a mixture of it. And they would do donuts in the parking lot. We would just hang out. We would all just meet up and I don't even know what we would fucking do. We would just sit. You would just sit and you'd have one person play music and you would talk about, all right, what's the next move? Where are we going to? And you would figure out where the party was of like, okay, this is where we're going to go to. And you'd end up driving. So once you like meet up with your friends, you're just like, oh, hang out. And you're just hanging out. Most people would do little beer runs if they could. Like, the stupid shit that teenagers do. And we would hop into some person's car or truck or whatever, and we would drive out into the middle of the country in the middle of nowhere by some creek bed, by just someone's land that they had, and we would just sit in the middle of that. And sometimes we'd have a fire, sometimes we wouldn't. We just would have, just shit, just sitting out there in the middle of nowhere drinking, Captain Morgan and Coke or some bullshit drink of just like, what is the point of it? Like looking back, I'm like, that was so boring. Like that's truly so boring because it wasn't like you were seeing the same people every time. And it wasn't really like at that point yet. It was just everyone sitting there talking and mingling. And I just don't get it, like when you're around those people all the time, it's like, what is there to talk about? Like
there never really was any actual conversation. It seems like it's like
just standing around, whatever,
making noise.
Yeah, standing around, or people, or the guys talking about trucks, or whatever they just killed, or just the stupidest shit, right? Like that's what I remember. Kind of the first half of high school of like, this was before everyone would like have the giant subs and like blare them like crazy, and that was like, we were just kind of not really quiet, but just sitting there playing some trap music, drinking our drinks, and then being like, okay, haha, that was fun, time to go home. Or not, or not, just depending on what it is. And I think that's hilarious is like you said you meet up at this like middle of town where there's cops know you're meeting up there, and they could just follow you to wherever you're going. You know what I mean? But it was like also the thing is like there was so many known other families in that town that it was like some of the police were friends of the family, so it doesn't really fucking matter. They wouldn't really do anything anyways. That's also the beauty of a small town thing. It's like you never really got in trouble if you were doing something bad, like, I mean, I never got in trouble if like me and my friends were like pulled over and we had like sober driver and like maybe people were drunk in the back, but the driver was sober. They were just like, get them the fuck home. Don't let me catch you out here again. Like it was nothing like crappy about it. And that's the shitty part about like, I feel like that's a privilege as well. On that aspect is like, it's a very small town privilege for sure. But also I feel like being a female too, that also is a privilege to just be like, oh, no big deal. Ha ha ha. But I think it was, like I said, you would go to school all day with the same people. Then you would go do stupid shit with the same people that same night. Or you would do stupid shit with the people that you don't even talk to during school. Yeah. Which is what I think is also fascinating is like, there was always so many people that wouldn't give me the time of day during school that were either talking my ear off or like, wanting to get some during those times. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And if you, and that's the thing about small town too, is the small town gossip is like, if anyone did anything, everyone knew about it.
Everyone fucking knew.
Everyone knew about it.
It wouldn't even be just like, oh, the people in your class knew. It'd be, no, the entire school knew. Most of the people in the town would know. Ergo, your family would find out immediately. And
Yes and no. Maybe for you, but for me, no. Mine always got spread around, but it was never like it never got back to my family. But we'll have I have a whole podcast episode I want to do of just high school specifically, of like the shit things that happen in high school, and like all that shit. We'll talk about that later. We're getting to more detail about it because my high school experience is quite insane. For you guys that don't know, but so yeah, it was I think that like meeting up at a Sonic and getting like your drinks so you could go mix whatever alcohol you wanted to later that night, or you're just bored with your friends and you're not even like drinking, you're literally just having a casual night and there's nothing else to do, so what do? Drive around. You just go sit in a parking lot somewhere, or you I used to have a 2004 Jeep Patriot, an old blue one. And me and my friends used to jump in, and I would drive. We'd jump in it. We got into the middle of nowhere, and then we'd like put blankets on top of my on top of the roof on the Jeep, and we'd just lay out and look at the stars and listen to music. And that was like something we did. We weren't getting in trouble. We weren't doing anything bad. We were just sitting out, look at the stars, you know. But we didn't want to be at home. Does that make sense? You know, just anything to kind of distract yourself because there's nothing to do. You know.
oh, is that my cue to say something?
Oh, I was waiting.
Well, I didn't know. I mean, this is all going to be edited at this point, but I was just letting you go because you were just on a tangent and you were just going.
Well, also, like I said, there's all different types of people that are in small towns. You know, you have the people that, like I said, have been there forever. You have the people that are new that move there to a small town. You have the people that are from like big cities move to a small town. You have the people that are in different activities as well. You have like the farmers and the ranchers and like the FFA style people. And then you have like all the athletes. And it like, you know, it all kind of breaks down. And then you have like the rich kids. So you have like everything in kind of a different environment, which does bring a different experience for everyone that is in that small town. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it kind of depends on like you could have been a person in a small town but never hung out with like the country kids. That's a totally different environment, hanging out with like the country kids, than it is only just, you know, because I grew up by a lake too, so we had like super rich kids with big lake houses and a bunch of other things like that. So like you could have been like a lake person, or you could have been like a country person, and those country kids were gigging frogs at like 3 a.m. You know, like, and if you guys don't know what gigging frogs means, it means they were taking like spears and stabbing frogs on little Jimmy fish boats.
You mean John boats?
Yeah, John boats. My bad.
Not
John
Jimmy
boats.
What?
Jimmy boats. Jimmy
What
boats.
the fuck is a Jimmy boat?
John boats. My bad. So you have like, and it was like a thing was you have like I said, you would have like the country kids that you're partying in a field in the middle of nowhere, gigging frogs, or like dancing by a bonfire, and that was like that experience. Or you have, you know, with the rich kids and their like little house parties, or just being inside, not outside. You're not having to piss outside in the woods. You actually gonna go in the bathroom. You know, that's a huge difference. And if you only have one experience to those, you're not gonna understand that like the countryside of it is a huge difference.
Yeah,
huge difference.
It was a little different in my town, only because like all
You
of
also
those.
got a college too.
Well,
was
yeah,
very-
there's a small college in my town. So like the exposure was a little different because like pretty much the almost exclusively with growing up in a small town that also has a college. Majority of people will end up going to that college, and if they don't go to that college, they'll spend like a year or two at like a bigger school in the state, or maybe even out of the state. But ultimately, they almost always end up back at that damn small college because it's cheaper. Your family lives in that town. You don't have to pay for anything. Like a lot
I
of
wouldn't
the
even
times
say
people-
that. It was more of like they miss it. They can't adapt to the bigger lifestyle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in some aspects.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird because like I did the same thing as everyone. Like I graduated from the school that I started at. I difference is like I got out of my small town very, very early. I
Yeah.
got out and then I came back and then I left again and I haven't been back since.
Yeah.
But it's one of those situations where like you go to high school and then your senior year rolls around, everyone starts talking about I'm gonna go to this school, I'm gonna go to that school. So it's your senior year, everyone's trying to figure out where they're gonna go to school. And you've got a couple options. You can go to the big schools, or you can go to the college that's right there in your town. Most people go to that one. Now, me specifically, I have a little bit of a different situation because, like, I was already in the military at 17.
Fucking batshit crazy. Let me just throw that out there, guys. I also know that is batshit crazy. How long did you spend in the army again? Tell the audience.
8 years.
And you started when?
When I was 17.
Yes, Rudy.
I had to have my mom sign over my rights in order to join the military.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy to me.
Yeah, I
That-
know.
But that's also like your version of like that. Also, like I said, it's either you go to a big town.
Thing.
Yeah, you go to a big town, a big city, and you change your life. You go to a big city and come back and you never leave the small town again. Or, you start something new or you join the military.
You join the military to get the fuck out of the small town. And
Yep.
then ultimately end up back in
To
the
go
small
see
town.
the world.
Yeah, I did that and then ended up back in the small town to go to college there through a program through the military. And it was just like a stark realization that like you can escape a small town, but a small town never really leaves you. Like there's still things that I do to this day that I'm like, the only reason I do this is because I grew up doing this.
Facts. 100% true. I truly believe that. Like, you can leave a small town, but a small town will never leave you. That's very, very, very true. And I'm sure a lot of you guys will be like, yes, Stoney, yes. Preach it.
Yeah, and so, I was already in the military at 17. So once we graduated, like my only plan was I was going to go to college while I was in the military with a program that they do. And I went to college in that small town. I made it like all of almost a year, not even a full year. And then I dropped out because I was like, college is not for me. So then, went back to doing my thing.
Like military.
Yeah, so the whole time I was in there, like, it doesn't matter if you're like in high school or you're in college, you still do the same dumb small town shit. The only difference is now you have access to like readily available alcohol. That's really the only difference in the two. As opposed to having to like try to sneak it from somebody's parents, find someone with a fake, whatever you have.
Yeah, for you, like since you said you stayed in the same area, that would be the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and
but
so
for me,
like
totally different.
And so like for us, when we would still, go back roading, we would still have bonfires, we would still have field parties.
You just have more alcohol.
Yeah, you just have a
you
lot
can
easier to get
a little bit
alcohol.
easier, yeah.
Because there's people who are actually already 21, or at the very least have a fake ID and or know somebody who's 21.
You're not having to like rely on your friend's older brother that just turned 21, is coming back from college into your small town for a visit over the holidays or whatever. Like, I totally understand that too.
So whenever you leave high school and you have people that you knew forever, chances are you're going to go to college with the same people that you went to high school with. So you're going to be doing the same stupid things that you were doing back then. The only difference is now you're in college. And you run across the same people, so you're all not really learning anything different. You're not really even really growing as people for that aspect. I mean, cuz it's still small town politics, it's small town this, small town that, but you're in college now, if that makes any sense.
So Stoney's aspect is a lot different from mine because I didn't go to a college that was technically in my hometown. I went like 3-4 hours away to a bigger college. So I don't really have that, like, the only thing I can kind of compare it to is like when I would come back sometimes for like holidays, like when people in college come back from like Thanksgiving break, and then that's kind of where you would see people you went to high school from or like people who are still there. That's like the really only way I can kind of compare that feeling is when you would come home to see other people. And yeah, you'd see people that are changed, you still people that are like stayed the same. You see people that haven't even done anything. And for me, I wanted to get out and never come back the moment I got into high school. I think my entire life I've I wanted to leave my small town and never fucking come back. And I still have that mentality in myself. And I have plenty of, people that I know or I went to school with, or, I went to the college with, that they, as soon as they graduated, they went back to their small town, the same one. They just went right back after they graduated and work and live there now. And that's their thing, which is fine. Like, everyone can do whatever the fuck they want and there's no judgment on it. But for me, I never wanted to go back ever. I still don't have the desire to go live there anymore, which is why we don't. And I feel like that's a totally different situation too. It's like, you have the people that leave and never come back. You have the people that leave and come back and stay, or you have the people that never leave and that they're just there. And for you, everything kind of being in that little area, I feel like it's probably harder for the people that you went to school with, or the people that everything to do get out, because like I said, you're going from that town to high school immediately into college there,
Yeah, and then typically most of them will either move like an hour away to like the city for a job after they get finished college, or
Would they still like live in the town too and then just like commute back and forth, or do they actually like move?
It depends. Some of them do that. I mean, I would say the majority of them just actually pick up and move.
Yeah.
Because not everyone wants to do an hour commute one
Yeah.
way every day.
Yeah.
But a lot of people will either get a job in the town, or they'll, for whatever reason, and I don't know if this is just a small town thing. I don't know if it's what it actually is, but for whatever reason, like the jobs in small towns are, pretty much nothing. You can be a teacher, you can go be a fireman, you can be a cop. And that's kind of just about it, really, with small town stuff. I mean, yeah, there's obviously other careers and stuff.
Or
like
they're
that,
doing
but-
like, the blue collar work where they have to travel for a little bit and then they're home, and you have their little families with a bunch of kids and a wife that just is there doing that the whole time.
In other words, that's oil field. You either go do something like public service in some aspect, like a cop, fireman. Some people join the military. You be a teacher, or you could, like join the oil field or do some other form of manual labor, because that's really all that's there in small towns. Like there's that, or you fall into the other side of things where you don't really ever get a career and you just keep working dead-end jobs like forever.
That, or a problem with, I'm sure a lot of you guys will understand what I'm talking about. You have the people that fall into the drug addictions and all that other stuff, because if you guys don't know, big cities are, prominent for different kinds of drugs and illegal substances, right? But small towns, it can wreak havoc on entire communities. And it's not just like, weed or cocaine. It's like meth and heroin. Like, especially where we're from, meth is a very big, very, very, very big thing. And it's very common to see kids that you go to high school with, that's all they become. Which is fine. People struggle with their addictions, and that's okay. Hopefully they get help one day. But you even see people in your high school, like as you're in high school, shooting up, and it's just common because of, the poverty line of it being a small town, the generational curses that come with it. Like there's a lot of factors that come with it, but a lot of people don't know that there's drugs in giant cities, but it wreaks havoc on small towns. Because when you're bored and there's nothing to do, what do? You can do drugs.
Exactly. Like, I mean, it's one of those situations where it's even gotten so much worse in a modern day. And like, I mean, I don't even know how bad it is in my town, like in my small town anymore.
Tell you.
Because like whenever I left that small town, like it was, you'd hear about meth, you'd hear about heroin and stuff like that. But the majority of stuff was
pills.
It was pills. That was the big thing.
I remember tons of kids in my high school, like always.
Someone stealing pills from somebody.
They were either doing pills and drinking, and that was like the thing, was like Oxycontin and whatever the like mid 2010s pills was. Because I know everyone's like, Xanax nowadays, you know what I mean? But like the Hydros and the Oxycontin were huge.
Yeah, it was like Hydros, Oxycontin, and Adderall were like the big three, and then obviously Ritalin too. But it was more Adderall than Ritalin.
Yeah,
and people were, and it's so easy in towns like that to get a hold of that stuff, because like nobody nobody locks their shit up. Nobody really is all that. I guess almost they're naive about it. Really is like the easiest way to put it, because
It's the same concept of like how nowadays we kind of lock our doors and we don't just like have people come over whenever, because it's not like the 1950s anymore. Like
yeah, that's still
small
a thing.
towns still have small towns will leave their keys in people's trucks, no problem. Like they'll just unlocked. They'll leave the doors unlocked all the time, and I feel like that's changing definitely as we grow as an entire society. But that used to be a big thing, was just people.
Yeah, I used to never lock my truck. I used to never lock my house, really. Like it was just one of those things, and it was purely because like you lived in a community where everyone knew everybody. So like if your house got broken into, chances are you knew who did it.
Yeah. Exactly.
And if you didn't know, someone did know. Like it was that small knit of a community that like, and everyone knows what everybody drives. Everybody has, everyone knows.
Especially also like the police and the EMTs and like people who in the firemen, they would know because they're either getting all these house calls to the same people all the time. They're getting all the same things. So like if it is like records and stuff are quite known in small towns in a sense.
Yeah. Like there's people that, their entire family is in the system for like the same fucking stupid thing.
I feel like that is also...
the apple doesn't always fall far from the tree, especially in a small town. Like if you like, as bad as it sounds, like there's people that like their parents were doing X, Y, and Z forever,
and then you think, I hope they get into it.
Yeah, you hope. And you're just like, okay, I hope this person doesn't fall down the same fucking rabbit hole that everyone else in their family does.
Like I said, the generational curses that come with the small towns is not only because we grew up also near a lot of, we had a lot of indigenous people in our community. We had a res near us. It is a different aspect because it's like, it is a generational thing of like, it could be a generational drug use. It could be a generational crime, problem. It could be just so many things that it makes it so hard for that descendant to get out, because that's all they're surrounded by. Like that's all that's around. That's all that they know. And then they're stuck. Then you get stuck in the small town aspect. It can be good and bad. You could be stuck for all the good reasons and like making a career and starting your own business in the small town or whatever you want to do, or you could be stuck in the getting arrested all the time and end up in jail or prison.
Like
or dead because of drugs.
And you could just OD one night, and I mean that's a very common occurrence in a lot of these towns. You'll know people for like 20 years, never knew they had issues or whatever, and then they just wind up dead one day, and you're like, what the fuck happened? And it's like, oh well, you've been gone for this amount of time, and in this time, like the 5 years, 10 years you've been gone, this person got caught up in all this bad stuff, and then someone ends up dead.
And I feel like as small town kids, it's very, very, very easily to be around the wrong people. It's so easy. There's been times where it's like I said, we'll go into a whole aspect of my high school career, and I'm sure we'll do a high school episode to break it down even further. But there's been plenty of times where I've been in positions just even being around one friend that hangs out with other friends, and you're like, oh, I don't want to be here right now.
Yeah, there's 100% circumstances of wrong place, wrong time. And that's like so true when it comes to that aspect, because like small town politics play a large effect on honestly your entire life in a small town.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like you're saying, you just get in a situation where you have no control over said situation. You don't want to be there, but because whether it be you rode with somebody
or you just met up at a party and you didn't think it was going to be that type of thing or that environment, or like you didn't know, or the people that you don't want to show up and you're like, oh, okay, this is going kind of sideways very quickly, very weird, like it is a weird environment when you are in the small town. And I'm sure it happens, like I said, in the bigger cities and tons of other things too. It's very easy, but I feel like it's a very, very, very common that it could be one path to the other very, very quickly.
Yeah, because it could be something as simple as, oh, well, this person got pulled over and somebody was holding something that you were with, and boom, now you're already associated with that.
Yeah, exactly. And then everyone in the town thinks you're associated with that. And yeah, it's a weird balance for sure.
Yeah, because small towns are really weird about that public image and like,
Gossiping. Let's get into
yeah,
that. The
they're-
gossip and
gossip
the,
in your public image
and
now
your
is a
family's
reflection of
image.
everything. Yeah, so if like if you've got like members of your family that are kind of shitty, you might not inherently be shitty,
But
but
people are gonna give that wrong impression because they think
Yep.
you are.
Yep.
Yeah.
and
So
that happens too easily.
we can get into like the gossip aspect of it and how people all there's song lyrics about it, but people always say word travels fast in a small town.
It really
very-
fucking does. I remember
Very, very, very
like,
true. Yeah, you got a story? Yeah, a fun
Yeah,
little
I
story
remember
about
as
that
I
or
was a
something.
kid. I say kid. I was probably like 3rd or 4th grade, maybe. And so another thing with like a small town that people don't realize, especially if they grew up in cities, in small towns, I used to literally just leave home in the morning and just stay out until like dark.
You sneak out, right?
No, not even sneaking out. Like I'm talking about just like I would wake up at like say it'd be summer, right? I'd wake up at like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I would go to town, whether that be my mom would take me into town and drop me off at a family member's house or whatever, and then me and my cousin would just take off for the entire day.
Do something. Try to figure
Like
out what you're doing. Yeah.
completely, unsupervised, and usually that would require like us and then like a couple other just random kids in the neighborhood, or not even neighborhood, but in the town, really, because I always want to say neighborhood, but forgetting that there is no real neighborhoods where I grew up.
You're in the
It was just
country.
like no, I mean even in the town, like it's not even really a neighborhood. It was just like this is part of the town where there's a lot of houses. It's not even. It's not like a neighborhood like what you would say now. Like there's not like a nice like street that runs through it. There's not like a little community. It's literally just houses, then businesses. Like it's just the way that the town was set up.
And also, like I said at the very beginning, Stoney and I are from 2 separate sides of the state. So even his environment of like the grass or dirt or trees is so different than my version of it.
Like
so
trees especially.
While I was saying, oh, we're partying in the middle of the woods, we were in the middle of the fucking woods. Like trees everywhere, lots of little creeks and stuff like that. Stoney's was in no trees sometimes, it's very different.
Where I grew up, the entire like landscape was basically flat, and there was no trees because where I grew up, there was no the only kind of other type of terrain was canyons, and that was just because where I grew up, it's nothing but old wheat fields and people planting alfalfa, and they're planting like a lot of things that kind of can save themselves in a sense.
Be sustainable. Yeah, farmers over there are prominent. Same with like my side, but the gossip of it. We'll go back to that.
Yeah, and so I remember we would take off for the day, being unsupervised and being like 9, 10, all the way up until 14, 15 before you can drive. I used to get in trouble all the fucking time, all the time, whether it be dumb shit. Well, we would skate around town, and there'd be 8 to 10 of us on skateboards out, just wreaking fucking havoc. Not even intentionally, but doing shit that we didn't realize was necessarily hey, you probably shouldn't do that. Skating on, shit that you shouldn't be skating on and stuff like that.
You think whatever's something so harmless, right?
Yeah,
something so oh, we're just having a little fun.
Yeah, I don't know.
It would we're talking about the gossip aspect. Is it somehow would get back to your mom?
Yeah,
you would be home.
Today. Yeah, and then I'd get home that day and then just get my ass tore up or something for something. I'm like, what? I didn't even do anything.
And also it wouldn't even
friends.
be. Yeah, and it also wouldn't even be a police officer or anybody. It would just be some little Shirley Temple bitch in the town that she has nothing better else to do than just tattletale on everyone. In the small town, those people.
Yeah, it's just someone that's out and about doing their own things, and they just happen to see, oh, I saw your kid doing this today, and it's what? Why? What was? Why? You didn't need to say anything. I wasn't doing anything. We were just existing.
It's you still have those, and I know it's very prominent now because there's Facebook groups and shit now, because now they're on the internet and they can complain.
God, that wasn't
all they want, right? So now in the small towns they bitch and complain all over Facebook. But even at that time, you still have the people that are just looking to be the goody two shoes of the town, and they have that reputation of like they don't do no wrong, they're gonna tattletale on everybody, and or you have the girl, I call the people that are stuck in high school, because it's the women and the men that all they do is talk about their glory days of how, back in my day, blah, 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 the glory days of whatever. Or you have the other aspect of where they're just gossiping about what is going on in the town. Or I saw so and so with this person at this place, wonder what they were doing. And it could have just been like looking at something together. Like they make up these, like I said, the gossip of it. And I find it really hilarious because I've suffered quite a bit throughout my life of that. You just have these people that are so up in everyone's business for no reason, you know?
They've got nothing better to do, and most of the time
because there's nothing to
going
do
on in their own lives.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
They're just looking, and like they're almost like searching for something to be a part of, in a sense.
It's
And they're
very,
just, like,
very drama filled for sure. Like people that that love that thrill of knowing a secret, or oh my god, I can't wait to go tell Becky Sue and Jim Bob over there about, the farmer over there cheating on his wife, or oh, they got a new cattle, I wonder how they got that, like, just it could be the littlest shit for where it's a giant scandal, or it's something super small like they got a new beat up truck or something. Like, it's insane how miserable people can make each other's lives in a place so small that people will not understand if you live in a big city or you're away from it.
And then my favorite part is whenever you have whenever you figure it out for yourself that like, hey, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to have anything to do with this. You have the I guess not even necessarily the courage, but you have the head on your shoulders to get the fuck out of there. Then they have the audacity. Well, why would you want to ever leave here?
Oh my
god!
And
then they hit you with the what's so bad about this place? This place
my
is so
entire
nice.
family.
Everything is
my entire
is
family.
so much nicer here, and it's like, what the
Because
fuck? Are you high? There's
half of the
nothing
time-
here.
Half the time it's because they never have explored out. They've never experienced anything other than a town over, a couple towns over, or not even really their state. And that's why a lot of people have that mindset of, why would you ever leave here? It's so great. Because they only watch shit that's on TV and then think the whole world's shitty, but it's like they've never had any life experience. I have more life experience than my entire family line combined. And that's insane to say. Really, like, to me, saying that is batshit crazy to me, because I'm like, there's so many things in the world, and there's so much outside of the small town, and there's so many ways to experience life, but they get stuck in that routine.
Yeah, I mean, like, because I thinking back on that,
or financially can't afford to get out, and like I totally understand all that aspect, but we're talking about the people that just choose to never choose, not by circumstance. We're talking about people that just choose to never fucking leave and keep buying houses there and moving in the same spot, and like just buying a different house just on the other side of the town, or you know what I mean? Like, the people that choose to never go explore or get out there or have the experiences and the stories to tell. And that's why you have so many people being like, if you just get out of your small town, you'll understand that the mask will come off. Like, that whole, like, the world is so big, that will be shown right into your eyes of like, wow, everything doesn't revolve around Becky Joe and Jim Bob, or the politics of the small town, or wow, not everyone in the world thinks this way. That was the big thing for me, is like, I knew that at a very young age. I wanted to get out so bad because I couldn't understand why everyone around me was all the same in an aspect, Yeah,
and I feel like growing up, you either make that choice very young and at a very early age, and you're like, I don't want to be like everyone else here, or you fall in the category of, this is okay, this is fine, everything is okay, and then basically you just kind of watch yourself become the thing you don't want to be.
Yeah, exactly. That's also a big part. Is like, there's people who try to get out and then they end up back in the same spot, which, like I said, if it's for circumstances, that's fine, or you just feel like you can, but it's the people that don't, like I said, that haven't taken that mask off. that like are so close-minded and tunnel vision of like the only thing in the world that matters is a small town and nothing else exists out there. There's no such thing as like the world, you know? And that was hard to, I'm sure growing up when you didn't have the internet or a bunch of other things, like you really only know the stuff around you, right? So it's not generational fault in itself, right? But I'm talking about the people that have the internet now and like can go places and do things, but still just choose to be in the same spot. It's like, why? And that's an aspect I'll never understand, because it's like, if you're comfortable, cool, and you're happy, cool. But if you're like still miserable, why are you still there? You know? Things can change so quickly and for the better as well.
Yeah, like I remember in growing up, really not even remembering in a specific time, but there's so many instances where, you know, people would tell me like, "Oh, I've never been on an airplane. Oh, I've never, you know, been here or there," and it's just it's baffling to me because like, how?
It was me most of my life. That was me until I turned the age of 21.
Yeah, and that's a normal thing in a small town. Like, there's people that have never left because they've never wanted to, or if they have, they drive everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. But I think also one of the most important things, because we'll kind of wrap up here. One of the most important things to take away from this is that aspect of no one is the same. It's not all the same. Not every city is the same. Not every small town's the same. I'm sure the ideas of it, but I'm thinking of myself because I know I have, and this is crazy. Like, I know I have a lot of adults, people that are graduating high school that follow me, look up to me, whatever, back from my town. I know they listen. I know they watch my stuff. I know that. I'm talking to you guys. Don't feel limited on the world. Don't feel like this is all you're ever gonna have, because if you feel that way, you will get stuck in the pattern of it. It's okay to be in your town. It's okay to want to stay, and that's fine too. Like, there's nothing wrong with that if you have that feeling. But if you have the feeling of like there's something more, go chase it, go do it. Because if I would have never followed what I was doing, I would have never became Conway. I would have never had the life that I do now. I would have never had these incredible, amazing experiences, all because I was scared. So yeah, like I said, I know you guys are listening, and I know you're probably like, oh, it's interesting and that's crazy, or you, like I said, you guys look up to me on the aspect of just making it out, or whatever you guys want to say. But it doesn't always have to be that same pattern. Even if you're, like I said, your family's been there forever and ever, and no one in your family has done it, you have an opportunity to, and that's just by saying yes to things, following, you know, your mind, your instincts, and your heart about it, of going, okay, I'm ready for a change. I'm looking forward to a change. How can I make it happen? What do I need to do? What are the steps towards it? And then once you're out there and you're out in the world, then the small town mask starts coming off. Like, everyone around you, all the adults and stuff, not all of them are right. And that's the hard part too, is you're going to get out of that small town and you're going to be like, wow, whatever you're gonna say was stupid. You're
going to learn that, especially if you do get out of that environment that you grow up in, is that the people around you, one, don't know everything, and two, don't always mean well. That's
very much so. That part right there, don't always mean well. That's very true, Stoney.
Yeah, because like I can think, like, just, you know, without naming names or anything like that, I know so many people that I grew up around that while growing up, I thought, okay, this person has it all figured out. This person has the answer. This person is a good person. And then like all it takes is you leaving and then broadening that view of like what you think of in the world, what you think of in like in terms of your beliefs and everything like that. You realize like, oh wow, that person was actually inherently shitty. That person was not a good person. The only reason they were a quote unquote good person was because they were better than the other people we were around.
In a small town, yes. So whether that be your career, your spirituality and religion that you're doing, your political views, your just worldviews in general, whatever it is, take the moment to, if you are on your own, that learn stuff on your own, grow your own person, be your own person, and don't feel so limited to where you came from. Because if I felt limited to be where I come from, I wouldn't be speaking to you right now. I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. And I am so much better for the exploration that I did on my own. And I feel like that's very important because, like I said, this is a small town episode, and I'm sure people from small towns will be listening. It could be all sunshine and rainbows where you're at now, but you're going to look back in 20 years and be like, I wish I would have done a little bit more. Because even people I know from small towns always say that.
I've heard that. I heard that the entire time I was growing up. Like, there was people that would like almost try to push you into leaving
Like,
because
get
they're
the
like,
fuck out. Yeah.
do not stay here. You'll get stuck. This place eats people alive. And it's honestly the truth. Like, I know people that, were completely promising and like, oh, they're going to do great things. And then they just get caught up in something stupid or, make a dumb choice. And now they have to live with the consequence. And now they're stuck in that town forever because they didn't have it within themselves to realize like, hey, I should probably leave here.
Yeah. And it also, like I said, goes to the aspect on whatever views, like I said, we already did that little list. There is such a big world out here. It is an insane world. Coming from someone that has traveled by myself and been in different countries completely alone. It is an amazing, beautiful place. It can also be very scary. It is very scary at first. And it always will be scary, no matter what. But it's the beauty of knowing that you're not where you're at and you want to keep pushing forward in your life rather than just being stagnant, being plateaued, whatever. Like it's, I hope that you guys take that with, some pride of like, okay, I know it's not as bad as it seems and the people around me, you don't have to be like one of them if you don't want to be.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm nothing like really any of my family, and that's okay.
That is the cool part. Is it is okay.
Yeah, it's completely fine. Like, you got to remember, at the end of the day, you are your own person. You are the only person who is in charge of your own destiny. Nobody can make you do anything you don't want to do. Nobody can tell you to be something you don't want to be. It just really depends on how do you react with stuff like that. Because I mean, if you don't and you just, are one of those people that just goes along with whatever anybody tells you, like, yeah, it's probably going to kind of go exactly how you think it's going to go. But if you stop for that, fraction of a second, question things like, is this something I really care about? Is this something I really want to do? Is this where I really want to be? Most of the time, I mean, for me anyway, the answer was no. And all it took for me, to get out to, I guess, really to become who I am today, it took really just getting out of that environment. And sometimes it's as simple as that, as just, hey, just change your environment. You'll change your mindset. Experience things.
It could be a couple towns over. We're not saying you have to go travel across the country or across the world or nothing like that. It's just allowing yourself to break the mold of like, this is how you grew up. This is how you are. This is how everyone else around you is. You can come out of your shell a little bit and become your own person. And then you'll start finding your own interests. You'll find the people that are in your life, whether they're in it for temporary as a lesson or they're in it forever. Like there's a lot of different things that come with it. But like I said, you'll have experience. You'll be able to see the world in a different view. And then you'll get to where we're at in this life of like, oh yeah, they are right. It's not all about small town this. Because the things that you think matter so much in that small town don't fucking matter.
Truly don't
across the world.
matter. Yeah, like the last thing I'll say with this whole, spiel, keep an open mind.
Very much so.
I think that's the biggest thing that like I wish someone would have told me like when I was, 17 and starting my life. Keep an open mind, because just because the things that you were taught, things that were ingrained in you, things that were, I guess realistically, we can just say forced upon you, aren't true all the time, and they're not always for the best thing other than like, oh, this is because X, Y, and Z. If I would have just known like, hey, keep an open mind about stuff, realize that just because you learned all this growing up doesn't make it necessarily right and or true, it would have saved me so much in my adult life of like having to relearn a lot of stuff and like teaching myself like, hey, this is the better way of like how you should be and everything like that. Keep a fucking open mind. Because you can learn so much stuff from like the most unexpected like sources. Even like you can just keep an open mind. That's I'm just gonna end it there.
Yeah. And like I said, we'll down the road. We'll talk about high school specifically because I know we kind of touched on it and did that kind of small town aspect of it. But we'll really talk about like what it was like for Stoney, what it was like for me, because my high school experience is very unique to myself. Had a lot of insane things, being in the position I was in a small town, all that shit to where I am now, right? We'll talk about it on the road, but if you guys managed to make it this far, we really appreciate you listening on another episode. I have the secret passcode this week, actually. I have one.
What's the secret passcode / secret emoji / everything? What you got for us?
So this week's secret passcode will be a traffic light.
Yeah,
that's traffic light.
That's fitting.
Because how many minutes and hours have I sat at a traffic light waiting for it to change in a dead intersection with no one around, just sitting there staring at a red stoplight, just like,
yeah, because it never fails. The second you decide to be bold and like, okay, no one's around here, I'm gonna go. That's whenever it always just goes wrong.
Yeah, no, not even that, but just like sitting there being like, everything's on a timer in a sense. So you're just like waiting.
Yep.
There's no one around. You're just like, okay, I just need to get past it. So the secret passcode this week is a traffic light. Feel free to message us. You can leave it in the comments on our posts. You can leave it on the YouTube page, wherever you're watching or listening. I mean, you're not really watching. You're just kind of staring at our little loading screen, I guess, our thumbnail.
Sure.
But yeah, the traffic light, I thought that was perfect for our little small town shindig. But I hope you guys really enjoyed episode 6. Like I said, we'll down the line get into more depths about it and tell more stories that aren't so general. But Mr. Stoney Robbins, where can we find you at?
You can find me everywhere at Stoney Robbins, and if it's not just that, throw an underscore somewhere in there. I don't know, figure it out. I'm on there. All you got to look up is Stoney Robbins. It's kind of a pretty easy name.
Or if you've already found me, you can just find him there too.
Yeah, we're in each other's bios just about everywhere. I mean, like, fuck, you followed us on the podcast channel, probably. That's how you got here. My name's there.
If you're not, find us individually. You can find us on the podcast channel.
If you don't want it, don't fucking follow me. I don't care. If you want to follow me, cool. I'm not going to guarantee you anything. Hell, you might not even see anything from me for weeks at a time, but it's there. Follow it if you want to. What about you?
And you guys can find me. I made it so fucking simple and so easy. You can just type in your little web browser, your phone, whatever, ConwayTitty.com. That's Conway, Titty. That's titty, not with D's, but with T's. .com. It'll take you to all my links. Literally everything's right there, so you don't have to go individually type in at names or whatever the fuck. So yeah, ConwayTitty.com. That's the easiest way to find us. Or, like Stoney said, on the fucking podcast page.
You guys fucking made it this far to listen to the damn thing. Now do a little bit more research, you idiots. Yeah. Just scroll down. Go look in the About section. Just go look. It's right there.
But we appreciate you guys listening. Be sure to download, share, like, whatever the fucking boring spiel that we do every episode. We really do appreciate it. It really does help us get out there in the world.
Download, do a backflip,
clap your hands 3 times.
You know, all the things.
Sign blood. Yeah, well, all of the stuffs. But we have some very special episodes coming up for you guys. I hope you guys will like them. Spooky season has started, so I think it's gonna be fun.
In closing,
whatever. Hey! We can't hear you, sir.
Go get our merch.
Can't hear you. You're so close to the microphone. What the fuck?
Do you mean?
It's
get our merch.
There you go.
Get our merch. We just dropped new merch. It's really fucking cool. Go get it. Go like it. Go buy it. Go share it. Go tell everyone about it. Go get it. It's really cool. It's a really cool shirt.
Okay, he said go get our merch because he was screaming in the microphone is what it sounded like on my end. So hopefully it's not too glitchy for you guys because I heard merch. That's what it sounded like.
Buy our merch. Buy our merch. Buy our merch. Buy our merch.
Buy our merch. There you go. Okay. Well, that is all for episode 6. We'll see you guys another time. I'm your host, Conway Titty.
I'm Captain Idiot.
Can't hear you, sir. What was that? No.
Hey, Bye.
Bye.